I grew up in an average Israeli middle family. When I was 14, I lived on 5 or 6 different homes because my dad was a trade guy. He would invite me to go to construction sites with him. When he started getting into the fashion business, I would actually go ride in the car with him and watch him sell, watch him go from store to store, watch him trade and watch what he does. That's what instilled in me.
What does a family office even mean?
Most people think it's a family that has an office. It's a way to keep what a family is built on different. It's not just the financial aspect of it. It's governance. It's to avoid in family fighting. It's to avoid all sorts of issues that can come out with the wealth that somebody in the family has created. So it's really to formalize it. Man stands a woman. It's very, very important that you live with each other. Happy wife, happy life. It's the same way. A happy husband. When you come to work because you have a good life, you have a good marriage, you get a good home, you're thinking about less issues at home. It could give you a better drive to succeed in life.
Just before we go, what's the last message you would love to leave for your grandchildren one day?
I hope them to realize the opportunities. Like when you hear about immigrant stories, people that came at the turn of the centuries, got off the boat, people that survived World War II and came to the U.S., and all these immigrant stories that you hear. We took a lot of sacrifices. It wasn't just me. My parents suffered just as much as me, maybe even more.
Welcome back to the Rabasha Family Podcast. Today's guest is someone who truly understands how wealth, real estate, and capital move at the highest levels. Chaz Lazarian is an attorney, entrepreneur, and commercial real estate developer based in Atlanta. Over the course of his career, he has structured and financed hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial loans and has been involved in the ownership, development, and management of millions of square feet of commercial real estate across the United States. What makes his story even more remarkable is where it began. Chaz immigrated to the United States alone at the age of 14. He had to learn a new language and adapting to a completely new culture before eventually graduating from John Marshall Law School and building a career that spans banking, real estate development, and private investment. He has served as a top commercial lending producer at $1 billion financial institution. He's led major community development projects that revitalized entire neighborhoods and today operates at the intersection of real estate, capital markets, and family office investing. Chaz is currently involved in investment strategy and real estate development through Insignia, LLC, and the L Family Office, where he works with private capital and sophisticated investors to identify and execute high-value opportunities. From immigrating as a teenager to helping structure large-scale real estate and investment deals, Chaz brings a rare perspective on how wealth is built, protected, and scaled across generations. As someone who lives life through his imagination to create everything he has ever dreamed of, really emphasizing and embodying the American dream. Chaz, welcome so much to the podcast and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. What a great opening. I couldn't even sum it myself. You've done a great job.
Thank you so much. So Chaz, let's take it back. Let's take it to that 14-year-old. Tell us, how did that journey coming to America and how did this vision start from your imagination into reality? Marketing is all about storytelling. Dad, when we first started this business, what did you say to me?
I said, yes, we do a podcast.
Why?
Because I want to tell our story.
Why?
Because I know the story builds a legacy.
Builds a legacy. And that is exactly what we do here at ETS Rabasha Media. We market your story on social media so you could build a legacy for those who come after you, to build your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, follow us on our platform. Go on our website, etsrabashamedia.com.
This is about legacy, and it is about showing up on social media every single day, because if you don't show up, your competition will.
You may be too young to know this, but it was based on TV, but you may be too young to know the TV shows. When I was growing up, there were an American TV show called Starsky and Hutch and Kojak, and that was in the 70s. I was a young kid in Israel, growing up in Israel, and watching this American TV shows. And Starsky and Hutch was two policemen that had a fancy car. Kojak was another policeman show that also had a fast car. And I was fascinated by what America had to show, which was tall building, all this excitement, all this action, fast cars, money, all these beautiful people that were on TV, and it fascinated me. And so from age 12 on, I kept nudging my dad. I was like, that place looks kind of interesting. I want to go there. And as I grew from 12 to 13, it came time for my bar mitzvah. I told my dad, I said, you know what, instead of hosting a party for me for my bar mitzvah, I would love to go to America, give me the money. And then at age 14, conversation kept coming up. And that was during the time where Iran had 79. Iran fell fell down as a country per se. And my dad, who was born actually in Iran, had a couple of cousins that fled away from Iran and moved to the U.S. And my dad says, you know what? I have a cousin that moved to Atlanta. If you want to move to Atlanta, it was your dream. And I was like, where's Atlanta? Back then again, 1979, there's no internet. There's no way to access anything. I actually had to go to the public library, pull up an atlas and open it up and find out this place called Georgia and a city called Atlanta. Okay, it's in America. I'm going there. And then my dad, arranged for me to come and study in the U.S. And I ended up moving here by myself. My parents thought I would last a week and go back home, or maybe 2 weeks and go back home. And I never went back home. I stayed here. And the next time I went back to where I was born was 12 years later. So that's how it started. Crazy
Wow.
story, but it's hard to believe. 46 years ago.
And what did your dad do?
My dad left me here. That's what he did. My dad is 91 today. And I tell him, I'm like, what the heck were you thinking living a 14-year-old in a foreign country? So my dad last minute decided he's going to come with me to see where I'm going. He came here, saw his cousin that he hasn't seen in many, many years, arranged for me to go to school here, and gave me a plane ticket to go back home and said, I'll see you in a week. I told him, Dad, I need some money also. He reached to his pocket. He had about $70 left in cash. He gave it to me and he says, okay, let us know if you need some more money. And got on a plane and left home thinking that I'm going to go back a week or two later. And I never went back. And a year and a half later, my mom, basically went crazy from not seeing me. I'm an only son. And she just decided it's time to come to see me. Back then, I couldn't call home every minute. It was, there's again, no cellular phone or WhatsApp or anything like that. So the way to communicate was either to pick up the phone and call, which was very expensive. It was about $15 a minute to call home, or write a letter. With the limited money that I had, I wrote letters and waited for the letter to arrive and for a letter to come back. And it was weeks and weeks in between conversation. Every now and then we would get lucky and find a broken payphone, believe it or not, to where, they were jammed and we can make calls all over the place. And I would call them once every few months if somebody found a busted, phone somewhere that we can call from. And a year and a half later, my parents came to visit. And I basically stayed here for the whole time by myself.
And so what was your dad's profession?
My dad had two professions. My dad was in a construction business. They had a construction company, but we actually started migrating from that into a fashion business, believe it or not. Part of his construction, which is a funny story, they built this amazing villa for a lady who was in the fashion business, and she loved how my dad transacted business. And she yanked him out of the real estate construction business to go into the fashion business and work with her because he was an entrepreneur and a businessman. So that's what he was doing.
So from that age of 14 and even below, what did you think you learned also from your mom, your dad and your mom? What did you learn from them that taught you about life? What was your dream when you were that young age and seeing your parents live life and dad being an entrepreneur and interesting in construction?
I grew up in an average Israeli middle family, which is, great home. The interesting part is in Israel, you don't move a lot. You grow up in one house and you pretty much live in the same house all your life until you move to your own house. So it's since my family was in the real estate construction business, by the time I was 14, I lived on 5 or 6 different homes because they kept building homes and we kept moving to another area of town, same town, but another area of town. But my dad was a trade guy. He would invite me to go to construction sites with him. I would go see him work. I would see what he was doing out there. And then when he started getting into the fashion business, I would actually go ride in the car with him and watch him sell, watch him go from store to store. And I was a young kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I would tag along with him on the weekends and go places with him and watch him trade and watch what he does. And it was maybe that's what instilled it in me. Nobody actually sat down and gave me the education, or no one sat down and said, here's what you do. Same something that we do with our kids these days, but it was just really following him. And where did I get my fire? I don't know. Maybe it was from him to begin with, but later on in life, I think it's just something that grew out of my own. Part of it was from survival mode when I was here, but I think a lot of the small trade, I saw him do it, and maybe it was instilled in me somewhere subconsciously, and I didn't know that was in me. My mom was in the hair business, just in the hair salon business, so wasn't much interaction as far as learning her business until later in life when I was helping her set up shop and do some stuff. I think being around my dad and watching him buy and sell and trade and keep moving around from house to house and doing what he was doing, I think that's what kind of helped out to get to the point to where maybe there was something in me to understand that it's okay to trade and it's okay to negotiate. And also being in Israel, you negotiate everything. There's a lot of argument, there's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of back and forth. It's the part of the culture. You don't walk to a store and just pay retail everywhere. You on the street markets, outside dealing with some stuff. And I think a lot of the culture around there kind of taught me that it's okay to hustle a little bit.
Okay, so I think that's quite powerful. Just again, seeing, people say, don't watch what you say, I watch what you do, and the actions, especially children, and you observing that. So you come to America at the age of 14 now. You've had that little bit of background of seeing your father, being around, loving parents and having that support at home. So now you're in America. What was your dream at that time? What was in Chaz's imagination as a 14-year-old?
What you see on TV and what you come to reality, two different things. I mean, there's some very funny stories and some very sad stories, right? Landing in New York the first 2 days and going to McDonald's for the first time and getting a cup of Coca-Cola and looking at it and going, okay, people have a straw in it. How do you put the straw in this thing? Because I've never seen anything like that. Something as simple as for you to understand that there's a hole, you got to stick the straw in. I still remember that on the first day when I arrived to the U.S., going to McDonald's and getting the drink and looking at the straw and going, how the heck this thing works? And then realizing the sheer size of it, right? It was overwhelming. Walking around New York and understanding what New York was. I only stayed in New York for like 2 to 3 days before I moved to Atlanta. It was insane, just the sheer size of it compared to where I grew. The tall building, the amount of people on the street, the traffic, the flow, just the excitement on the street was like scary. And then I thought I knew some English, and then you land here and everybody speaks English at a rate of a fire, fast fire that's flowing, and you're sitting there going like, okay, I only got every other word, or only got 1 out of 5 words because I thought they knew English, but it's very different when they start talking to you with a little bit of the New York accent and the speed that they talk versus what it is. So it was extremely, extremely overwhelming. And then I moved to Atlanta, which is a whole different speed, much slower, much calmer. You don't have the excitement and insanity of New York. It's all green, very different looking. And then it was in the late 70s, the whole thing that happened in the Middle East, animosity that people had toward people in the Middle East coming back. The fact that we were still in the South, things just ended up here in the 60s, right? So it was still fresh in a lot of people with regards to African Americans and being in the South, and all of a sudden an immigrant comes here. It wasn't a comfortable time, right? People look at you. I had an accent. I still have an accent. People, you look different. And then all of a sudden people start questioning where you're from. All the hatred towards the Middle Eastern that was around 79 and 80. So it's two different realm compared to what it is. And then you got a 14-year-old that saw something different on TV. And yet when I look at it, I'm going like, I can't go back. I asked to come to this. I got to make it work out. So it was that the whole conundrum. What do I do now? On one side, I wanted to come here. On the other side, I'm too embarrassed to go back because I kept telling everybody I'm going to America. I can't go back. So I had to tough it out and stick it out and stay here.
What was the hardest moment for you? What was that hardest moment that you said, man, can I really do this?
Hardest moment, there's a lot of them. I should write a book about the hardest moment. The fact that you're here by yourself, you barely speak the language, you have no relatives. It's a distant cousin that I never met. I'm sleeping on their couch. It's him and three other guys. So there were four of them that just ran away from Iran and moved to the US. They were all older than me. I was 14. The youngest guy there was maybe 18, but his brother was 22. And then another guy who was my dad's second cousin, who was like maybe 21, 22. So they were much older than me. I'm a kid. I don't know anything. Barely spoke the language, had no money, didn't understand anything. Like from the simple thing how to put a straw into a cup to understanding how anything works here. Going to school. I mean, I laugh about all this now. So going to school, the bell rings and everybody gets up and leaves the class. And the teacher looks at me and she goes, hello. And I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, she goes, get out of my class. And I'm like, get out of your class to go where? She goes, get out of my class. Well, in Israel, the teachers rotate, not the students, right? So, I mean, simple thing like that. Like, why would you have 30 or 40 kids running the hallway instead of one teacher? In Israel, you stay with the same class the whole day. You don't have lockers. You just go to class, and you stay in class the whole day, and the teachers rotate. And I mean, just simple stuff that today I laugh about it. And back then, I had no idea. I had no idea that the yellow bus was free because in Israel, you walk to school. You don't have buses. And here, I thought it cost money to ride the bus. I had no idea that those yellow buses running around the school was free to go to school. So just understanding the system as a whole, because I had nobody to educate me. I had nobody to teach me, nobody to explain me anything at all. So everything was strange. The fact that you go to a cafeteria to eat lunch at school, you don't do that where I grew up. And where I grew up, you bring your own sandwich with you, and during break, you go outside and you play soccer. You run around and do whatever you want to do. You don't go sit in a cafeteria to eat lunch. That doesn't exist. There's no food line. You don't pay for the food. You bring food from home. So all the little things to where it seems normal as you grow into them, everything was foreign to me. And then the language barrier, to understand the language, it was extremely difficult to learn. Like in math class, I would look at math and it was very simple to me because what they were teaching in ninth grade, I already studied 2 years before it, but I didn't know how to pronounce or announce or to do any of the words that they were using. It all was very complicated. I knew plus, minus, equal. That was it. I didn't know all the other words they were using in class. So I didn't know what derivative was. I didn't know what fraction was. I didn't know any of those words. And I would like see it and I'm like, oh, I know what that is, but I don't know how to say it. I had no idea what it is. So it was a very, very difficult time to understand all of it. And it just, not having friends, not having anybody. You basically, you get thrown to a foreign country with zero knowledge, zero language, zero anything. And it's not like today to where you can have a phone and you can have Google Translate and you can do whatever you want to do. Today, you can go to any country and with the help of your phone, speak whatever language you want, translate whatever language you want, search whatever you want. Back then, it was all learn from scratch. If you wanted to see something, you had to go find it on your own. There was no way to Google it and search it. So it was very traumatic. I mean, I look at it back now and I'm going like, how the heck did I survive any of it? It's insane. It's insane. And my dad looks at me. My dad is 91. It just says, it made you who you are today. Without it, who knows what you'd be. And I look at it, yes, I do, but it was very tough.
It reminds me of that quote. You had to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and that's the situation. Your dad dropping you. So 14 years old, New York, which I love, by the way. So you go New York to Atlanta, then you're in Atlanta, 14, in a new place and all these unknowns. Where does now this real estate, journey? Where does this lead you to now, from the age of 14 and going through those moments to obviously the empire you've built today?
So real estate didn't start until first year of college, right? So between 14 and 18, I worked at a fast food restaurant. I quit it when I was 16. I'll never forget it. I called the manager of the restaurant. I told him I'm done. He goes, it's Friday. I'm like, I'm done. I said, I'm not coming to work and I'm never working for anybody else. I'm on my own. And I started hustling. I started doing all sorts of other stuff. At 17 and a half, I started buying cars in Europe and importing cars from Europe. And at 18, I bumped into a guy in college who I knew from high school. And he started doing some real estate with his family. And he says, hey, let's go buy a house. And I'm like, what do you mean buy a house? He goes, hey, we can go buy a house together and do some deals. So he kind of dragged me into doing some real estate. So I did a house with him. Eventually, by then, my parents came in. So we started doing a little bit of homes here and there just to buy and sell a house. And then in law school later on, I met a guy who was doing quite a bit of real estate. And by then, my dreams kind of changed. I went to law school because I wanted to do entertainment law. I was working with some musician and I was ready to move to LA. And I met a guy in law school that was doing a lot of real estate and banking. And I started getting dragged into doing some deals with him. And that kind of reignited the whole thing with getting back into real estate on a whole different scale. So I started doing some more real estate and it just kind of like progressed. I started doing some music on the side with entertainment law, but I kept getting dragged into the real estate, and it was a transition. It was shifted into banking with this guy who I met in law school. We were doing banking and real estate on the side, and then it really became full time around 2007, 2008 when the market crashed. That's when we shifted completely into real estate at 100% because it was an opportunity time to start building what we were doing, and we started shifting more and more into real estate around 2007, 2008.
So you had that entrepreneurial bug from 17 to importing cars from Europe. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What made you even do that at such a young age with that entrepreneurial mind? Where did that even come from?
So I ran into a guy and he was driving a Porsche. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful car. Where'd you get it? He goes, oh, I bought it in Germany. I'm like, what do you mean you bought it in Germany? He goes, yeah, you can import cars from Germany and it's much cheaper to buy them there. And I want to do that. And I'm like, okay. Fast forward a few months later, I bumped into a guy. I was somewhere in New York or New Jersey. I don't know what I was doing there. I can't remember, but I bumped into this guy there. And we start talking about cars. And I said, I bumped into this guy who was importing cars from Europe. He goes, oh, it's funny. I'm actually going there in a couple of months to do a car myself. We swapped numbers. We talked on the phone a few times. And then I told him, I said, I want to come with you and see what you're going to do. And again, this is in early 80s and mid 80s. No internet, no cell phones back then. Cell phones just start coming out. So we swapped numbers. We swapped flight numbers. We both flew into Germany at the airport. And you got to remember, you're trying to coordinate with a guy you met one time at a party in New Jersey or New York. And we've both flying to the airport. I got there first. I waited for his flight to come in. I met the guy one time. He comes in. We both could land in this foreign country. We have no idea what the heck we're doing. It's not like you can Google how to import cars from Germany. And we go hunting for some cars, right? We start going around the city, start finding some cars. So I found the Porsche. It was a 911 SC, and I didn't have enough money to buy it. So now I had to go get some change, use a payphone because again, there's no cell phone. We're not carrying on cell phone to where we could WhatsApp or FaceTime anybody. I called one of my friends and I said, "Do me a favor. I'm in Germany. Everybody was on spring break from college. And here I am in Germany in March, freezing, rain, snow, whatever else is down there. And I'm calling a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, can you loan me some money? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm in Germany. I'm buying a car. I need some money. And he's like, okay, send me some information. Again, there's no email. So I got to call him back again. He's got to write all the information down. I had to go to a bank, get the information. He ends up borrowing some money from his dad. We both 18-year-old kids at college. He borrows some money from his dad. He wires me some money to Germany, and I'm sitting in Germany the whole time for 2, 3 days, waiting for the money to come down there. And I ended up buying my first car. I brought it back to the U.S. Had to go through the whole transition to learn how to import the car, how to get it on a boat, how to do the paperwork, bring it to the U.S., then comply with DOT, EPA standards, all this stuff. No internet or any of this stuff. You had to go and knock on doors, make calls, do whatever we need to do. Got the car, brought into the U.S. and sold and made some money. And it was one of those things, buy and sell, repeat. And I did it a few times and ended up bringing Mercedes Benz, BMW, Ferrari. It was a lot of fun. So for 18, 19-year-old kid to drive all those cars, while I'm going to school, it was a lot of fun because I was just in college and doing this on the side between spring break and summer break. I would just fly to Europe and go buy cars and bring cars back. So that I think that kind of ignited my whole passion into cars. That I kind of start falling in love with cars because it was so much fun to have all these cars while I was still in school. I didn't have any much money at all, but I would look outside the window and go, I'm gonna drive that car tonight to school, and just get in a car and drive this fancy car to school. And everybody was looking at me at school, going like, "Who the heck is this kid driving a Ferrari or driving a Mercedes to school?" And I'm 18 years old, 19 years old. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. Like you said, no Google, no ChatGPT, no social media to communicate. You just had to, figure it out. Really, again, when we're talking about the American dream. So, okay, so now, and just really quickly, because you had such an entrepreneurial bug, why become a lawyer? What made you could have just went on to keep, going and buying and selling things and just become an entrepreneur without going to university? What made you want to go? I know you said a little bit about the entertainment law, but what made you, okay, then go in and study law, and how many years that takes you?
So I was doing so much business in college that I started slacking off as far as finishing school. I actually didn't finish college immediately. I had like a semester left, and I decided I got so many businesses. I'm going to slow down and go do some businesses out there. And then I went back and finished my college. I think that I had one semester left. I went and got it down. I kept saying, you know, being the Jewish kid that I am, my parents like, go be a doctor. I'm like, not in a million years. I can't do that. It's me and blood don't get along. It's too difficult per se, and I'm not doing it. Then I'm like, maybe I should go do law school. And my mom goes, you'll never make money as a lawyer. I'm like, why is that? She goes, you talk too fast. You'll be done in 5 minutes. Instead of charging a client for an hour, you'll be done in 5 minutes. You're not going to build them enough money. So you got to slow down with what you do because you want to get things done fast. And then I was always fascinated with entertainment and music, and I figured I don't sing, I don't play any instrument. I'm good in business. Maybe I'll get into the business side of it. And I said, if I get in the business side of it, what's better than being an entertainment attorney? If you look around, most of Hollywood, that's the persona that we got is like they get a good Jewish lawyer, get a good Jewish accountant, and get a good Jewish doctor, and you're set. And I figured, well, I may as well just go be an attorney and get into the business. So I ended up going to law school, and I did it later in life. I did it when I was 27, so there was a gap. I didn't go to school immediately. Went back to back at age 27. I took a pause and I ended up going to law school and doing it while I was working like crazy. And I was on my way to go to LA. I wanted to move to LA to go work there because I figured what a better place. And then I ran to this individual that I mentioned earlier in law school, and he told me, helped me out with a couple of projects, which I stayed behind to help him. And those couple of projects became to 30 some odd years later staying here, never moving to California. So I was doing it to move. I ended up doing some music with local artists, with Jermaine Dupri. I worked with some local recording artists, with Little John. We did a record deal with Social Def. I represented an artist out of New York, and so we did that deal. And I ended up doing some other stuff on the side. It's a great. It was a fun time. It was a lot of fun traveling. It's a crazy business. Those long hours, staying out of after hours with this artist, traveling with the artist. It was a lot of fun to do it. But the real estate was more steady, and it was more tangible to do, because in music you're as good as your last song per se, and the industry can go up and down, up and down. And I figured I got gravitated more toward the real estate and stuck in the real estate. Still love the entertainment business. Several years ago, I got dragged back into it and helped one of my friends who I met in law school, who's still doing law. I helped him with a group. I was more on the silent side. I helped him do some deals out there, and so it's been fun. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot, met a lot of people. So it was a good time.
Well, what did you learn in the entertainment industry about people and that side of things that helps you within real estate?
I don't know if it helps in real estate. I think it helps with the money. As you read about a lot of these artists and then sports figures who go broke because the career don't last as long, or the music doesn't last as long. Like I said, you're as good as your last song, right? And to get a full career to where you can do hit after hit is very difficult. Or to be a sports athlete to where you can have a long career, and a lot of them don't have what they could do afterwards. And what I learned from it, and what I told them a lot of time along the way, buying an asset is great. Maintaining it's a whole different issue, right? Because you write one check to buy the asset, but in order to maintain the asset, you got to keep writing checks, right? If it's a house, you got to keep paying taxes, you got to keep paying insurance, you got to keep maintenance, you got to keep doing renovations, whatever you do, and those checks repeat themselves. Some of them on a quarterly basis, some of them on a yearly basis, some of them every few years. It's a big ticket items because you got to replace the roof. And one of the things that I learned from it, it's like the cash management. That a lot of them come into a lot of money. They don't know how to manage their money, and they end up setting up the bar very high as far as a lifestyle. They go out there and overbuy, overspend, and then the maintenance costs start eating up, and the money coming in is not there. So cash flow is king. Cash flow is better than cash, right? Because cash flow keep replenishing the cash. Cash gets depleted, but cash flow keeps doing it. So it was a good lesson to see some of the artists when the royalty checks start coming in a tremendous amount, and then they start dwindling down when the song is not longer as a hit, or the song does not getting played as much. It becomes an issue because all of a sudden the cash flow gets diminished, and the quarterly royalty checks don't come in, and the concerts are not paying as much, or you don't have the engagement as often as you did before. So it teaches you that nothing can last forever. It's very rare that things can last forever on the same level. And it's the same in real estate, right? You could take a building and get it up to a certain, or any property, get it up to a certain level, and then there's a plateau in certain things that but building may appreciate in a smaller increment, right? So if you get a building to where it's dilapidated, you fix it up, so you created value, right? But now it has value, and over course of time, it becomes the newness of it is gone, right? The roof is no longer new. Now it's 10 years old. So now in 5 years, you got to replace it again. Or the money that you put in as capital improvement, the look doesn't fit anymore. Doesn't fit with the purpose anymore. So it's the same cycle to where you get into real estate, to where you can reach certain value in real estate, and then it starts plateauing, and the growth is in a much smaller increments. And you got to always reserve money for the future, right? To renovate, to fix. You cannot just assume that the property is going to stay there forever in the same condition, because property is like anything else. It needs a lot of cash and attention.
Wow, the huge, really powerful lessons there. So now, like you said, your friend now gets you into real estate. You now merge from the entertainment industry in law into now real estate. What does that look like? What's the business model of real estate, and what is a good deal? So a split question there. What was the business model and how did you do it? How did you now create a company around real estate?
It was also a transition, right? You can't jump into like saying, okay, I'm going to go buy a large building day one, an expensive building, because part of it is capital. Real estate is very capital intense, and it's something that's illiquid in the sense so we cannot just take it to the market the next day and sell it. It takes time to exit out of real estate. So what we started was we're doing homes, right? You buy a house, you renovate, you sell, you lease, you keep, whatever the formula is, right? We did both. Bought some homes, fixed them up, we rented them for the income, we bought some homes, renovated them, sold them for some income. It's all a process. And you start with a house, you buy two, you buy three, then you end up buying a 12-unit apartment complex. You buy a small one. Then you start moving to something larger. So it was a progress to where we started with smaller units, start buying more units, start migrating to larger deals. From 12 units, we moved to a 40 unit. We moved to like 120 units. And then we started shifting completely to a different class of assets. We moved from residential into commercial. So we start looking at buying small shopping centers. And then you grow into that. You start buying from a small shopping center to a medium shopping center to a larger shopping center. And then you start buying an office building. You start with a smaller one and you learn. You cut your teeth on it. You start understanding what the aspect of it, and you start buying more and more. That's one side of it. What's a good deal? It all depends on the asset, right? It all depends on what your long-term hold and vision is for the property. So that's a whole different slew of things. So I mean, the way you get into the business, unless you have infinite cash, it's different. If you have little cash, you just start flipping homes, or you buy a small shopping center if you can afford it, and start growing into it and start buying more. What's a good deal? The saying goes, you make your money the day you buy the real estate, not the day you sell it. Because if you buy it at the right price, you buy it at the right value, you create the equity that you need in it to sell it and make profit down the line. So a good deal, it all depends on if you're looking to flip a deal or if you're looking to long-term hold. It's two different aspects of a business model. For us, we opportunistic. Our business model over the years have changed drastically. We do very little, if any, residential. We still have some legacy residential product out there. 99.9% of what we do today is commercial, so it's completely different. We are in very opportunistic. In the last 3 years, we've started shifting and buying a lot of office, and part of it is we're in a crazy market today, right? Post COVID, everybody's running away from office. It's the FOMO, fear of more office. Nobody wants FOMO anymore. Nobody wants office anymore. It's a dirty word in banking. Banks don't want to loan money on it. People are stuck with offices, but we're finding that it's opportunistic market for us because we buy it and we look at it as office differently because we look at it as a land encumbered by a building. We don't look at it as an office. Most of the time when we buy an office building, we buy it for the value of the land below it because we want to use the land for a different aspect. We want to use the land for multifamily, for townhomes, for other use altogether versus of what it is. So our business model is very different. We run toward the deal where everybody else is running away from the deal. So when everybody's running to buy something, if for example multifamily is hot, we don't touch it because everybody wants to buy it. So the money that goes towards some of those sectors drive the prices up, drives the returns very low, and we stay away from those. So we take more risk. We don't mind taking risk. We buy stuff that nobody else wants to buy. And today our focus, like in today's market in 2026, focus is on hospitality and office and buying some land out there versus, but we don't touch right now. We don't have any multifamily. We don't touch industrial because those two sectors are still doing extremely well. And, there's no opportunity there.
So, and I know you said you buy it for the land. In terms of is it also a cash flow game as well, where it's the rental income, or that's something that you guys don't really focus on as much?
Well, focus and like are two different things. We always love cash flow, right? Cash flow is king. But, some of the deals we buy do have cash flow. So I'll give you an example. We recently bought the former headquarters of Home Depot in Atlanta. It's two 18-story towers, 650,000 square feet. Private equity group paid $120 million for it. They had a $94 million debt on the property. It was a short sale. We bought the debt for $21 million. And part of the reason that the deal was a failure for the group that paid $120 million is that they lost a major tenant that was occupying 250,000 square feet in the building. So occupancy dropped drastically. It was in the mid 40s. So when we bought the property 6 months ago, we bought it September of last year. It's mid 40s occupancy, but its cash flows at about what's called 17 cap. So meaning that on cash basis, it's almost a 17% return. So it's cash flowing deal. And now what do you do with it? You could do nothing. You could just sit on it because 17 cap return, it's a massive return in real estate. But the occupancy is low, which is fine. The building is still cash flow. But then we're looking for other opportunities. So within this development, there's an extra 2 to 3 acres of land in front of it that fronts the street. So we're actually looking at it. We can redevelop it and add some retail to it so we can capture some of the land. So we're keeping the building intact the way it is. We're going to renovate it. We're going to try to make it something completely different than what it is so we can make it more leasable, modernize it. But at the same time, we're capturing some of the additional land that it's sitting on without demolishing the building by adding some retail component, adding a restaurant to it to where it's going to make the building more interesting because now it becomes more of a mixed use. So we do have some of those buildings. And then on the other side of it, we have buildings to where they may be cash flowing somewhat. And the whole intent is to go after the land. So we actually have to de-lease the building instead of leasing it up. We have the tenants move out to bring it down to zero occupancy so we can knock that building down so we can create more value in the land because we think the land is worth a lot more. And we've done several of those also.
And how much would you say patience is involved when doing business and around businesses like this?
So real estate, you got to have lots of patience because, like I said earlier on in the process, it's nothing that's liquid in a very fast pace. It takes a while to transact out of it. So it's nothing that you can take to the market and sell within a day. So you got to have a lot of patience, especially if you want to do a turnaround, meaning we're buying a building and we want to sell it for the land. It doesn't happen overnight because if the building has some tenants, it takes a while to move the tenants out. You can find buyers fairly fast, meaning that if the land itself, let's assume it's zoned for multifamily and it's in a good area of town, you can find a buyer. But those buyers typically want a year to get their ducks in order because they need to go out there and put together a plan, raise equity, put together the capital stack, do what they need to do. And it takes a period of 9 months to a year. So from the day you buy it until you sell it, it could take a year to 2 years to do it. So you need to have a lot of patience. Real estate takes time. Average hold on our portfolio is probably 2 to 3 years to get deals to turn around out there. So it's nothing that happens everywhere. And even the other side of it, for example, you bought a building, you want to lease it up. Even if a tenant came knocking on your door today, by the time you find a tenant, by the time the tenant does what's called a test fit to see if the space that they need fits the number of offices and cubicles or whatever else, by the time you agree to it, by the time you get them to sign a lease, by the time you pull permits, you build out the space, several months can go by, anywhere from 6 to 9 months to a year before the actual tenant moves in. So even as something as simple as a tenant moving in could take several months to do. So it's a lot of those things like hurry up and wait and have a lot of patience.
And so now throughout this journey, when did you meet your wife?
About 23 years ago.
How old were you?
I just turned 61 last week.
No. How old were you? Oh, happy birthday, by the way. But how old were you when you met your wife, Eddie?
I was in my 30s. Yeah.
How important would you say is, for example, as men, you're in business, how important would you say is now kind of meeting that person and how did you meet her?
Whew, that's an interesting story by itself. Look, it's very important. I was very focused on like in my late 20s, I was going to law school. I was, chasing business, chasing deals, and all of a sudden I'm in my 30s, right? So I wasn't looking for love per se. I was more looking for like, I want to go accomplish business, do what I need to do. And I happened to go to a trip to Israel with the guy that I met in law school, my business partner at the time, and he was doing a trip to go to Israel with the Jewish Federation, and I ended up going with him, even though I didn't want to go. He kept pushing me to go with him. I was like, I was born there. I'm not going on a Federation trip. There's no reason for me to go there, and I ended up going with him the last minute. One of my dad's family member introduced me to her while I was there. He knew her dad. They were doing business together. He tried to introduce us a year before, and I told him I'm not interested to meet anybody there because I live in the U.S. and I had no intentions to go there to meet anybody. But now while I was there, I was like, okay, I'm here, fine, we'll meet. And I met her one time while I was there, and it was literally like 48 hours before I left to go back. She called me at like 10 o'clock at night, and she's like, hey, what are you guys doing? We were on the way to go out. Israel is one of those late night places. We're on the way to go out, and we met, and we kept in touch afterwards, and that was 23 years ago, give or take. So it's an amazing story.
What stood out about her to you?
What stood out, the fact that she told me, hey, pleasure meeting you, nothing is going to happen between us because you live in the US, I live in Israel, and my dad and your cousin uncle wants us to meet, we'll go out, have fun tonight, and that's it. So that was more of a challenge to me, like going like, okay, nothing's going to happen. So now I keep reminding her, nothing happened. You moved to the US, you married me, we have three beautiful girls, nothing happened. So it's a funny story by itself because literally when she met me, she didn't even say hello. She just goes, "It's nice to meet you. Let's get one thing straight. We're just gonna go out tonight to satisfy my dad and your uncle or cousin, whoever it is, they introduce us." So they both will say we met each other. I'm like, okay. And the interesting part is, again, no internet back then, no cell phone. I used to carry a small camera with me, and I actually have two photos of us from the day we met. So the interesting. This was a thing in 2003 when we met, either 2002 or 2003 when we met, and I actually have two photos from the first day we met, which is kind of cool to meet somebody and have a photo from the first time.
And so then how old were you when you had your first child?
About 42.
And what led to that? Like what now made you say, okay, now I want to start being able to, bring in a family into this world?
I mean, you wake up one day and you're in like your late 30s, right? And I mean, I'm a family guy. My dad is the oldest of seven kids. I mean, I grew up with lots of uncles and aunts and cousins and love having family around. All my friends around me got married. I mean, a lot of them got married in their early 20s. I don't know if I wanted to do that. I was more focused to try to get stability and get education in life versus of chasing that later in life. So I got the education part of it out. Finished law school when I was about 29. And it was time to settle down a little bit. Just running around dating was nothing that I enjoyed doing. I didn't feel like going and hanging out in nightclubs. And again, back then there was no dating apps. There was not none of that stuff existed to the extent that it does today, to where it was easy to meet people. You physically had to go out and physically had to speak to somebody. You couldn't just chat online or talk to somebody like that. So it was much different than it is today. And it wasn't just I didn't feel like I'm doing it for the rest of my life, going out there and hanging out to go meet somebody. So it was, and after I left and I moved back came back to the U.S., Etty and I, my wife and I, talked on the phone, and the conversation kind of picked the pace a little bit. We started talking every day, and then it's like several months later, she came to the U.S. and we met up, and that was it. That was the end of it.
Mm. And then when did the creation of the family office begin? When did you start to realize, okay, now we need to create a family office? And then also going in a little bit with Etsy, in terms of building up a business together. How did that also now merge into one?
So the business, I was doing a lot of my real estate, doing a lot of my deals back then. I was still in banking and doing some real estate deals on the side. When she came to the U.S., I told her, I said, pick whatever you want to do, even if it's volunteering, but do something, with whatever you want to do. I was still wrapping up work with the bank that I was with. We had our own bank at the time. After 2007, 2008, we started going on our own and doing some deals out there. For a period of time, we tried to work together, and the chemistry wasn't there. It's like, how do you work with your wife? It's a whole different chemistry to work with somebody versus living with somebody. Because, again, I've been in the U.S. for a while. I felt like I knew better. I knew more. I'm more. I was more seasoned in what I was doing, so there was a lot of clash in the beginning. And then we tried; it didn't work out. She went and worked somewhere else for a while just to keep busy, and then she came back to help again. And then I realized, okay, how about I run in my own lane, you run in your own lane, and we don't clash with each other. And that ended up being the beginning of what it is today, to where we both found a niche of what we could do, and we both found what we're good at. And periodically we have to cross paths, and it's just there's the zero clash anymore. It's working very well. We complement each other. So over the years we learned how to work together. And in the beginning it's very, very difficult because everybody wants to be the leader. Everybody wants to be the one that comes up with the idea. Everybody wants to be the person that's, I know more, I know better, I know how to do it. And it just doesn't work like that. Just got to cut them loose and let them do what they need to do. And she's done great, and I stay in my lane, and it worked out really well for us. Not a lot of people could do it. I can tell it's very difficult because it's easier. It's easier to some people when they come home and the husband does X and the wife does Y, and they could talk about different things. For us, we have limitation of what we want to bring to the house to talk as far as business. But I do certain things. It's more of like I'm the hunter. I hunt the deals, and she's the skinner. she skins the deals, right? So I find the deal, I bring him, and she takes care of him once I bring him. So we both find a very good mix of how it works. With
Mm.
regards to the family office, that started about 3 years ago, to where we decided it's time to really try to take the family into a whole different level. And it's really, one of it is to educate the kids that we have. Like 3 years ago, our oldest was about 14, 15 maybe, and the other ones were 12 and 10. And we just decided it's time to really formalize it and try to put it together for the next generation. We don't have an extended family here. I have now, my parents live here, my sister lives here, I have a couple of cousins scattered around the U.S. Etty has a grandma that lives in Chicago. She doesn't have many siblings in the U.S. We wanted to create an environment for our kids to where they can grow, and there could be some succession, there could be some education, there could be a way for them to have a more meaningful life so they could grow in it. Because as you know, the US is a big place. Kids end up going to college and getting scattered all over the place. There's no assurances that they'll stay in one place. There's no assurances they're going to go work together. And there's zero assurances they're going to come into our business. We don't know if they will or not. They all may like something different. They may have different ideas of what they want to do when they grow up. So we decided to try to formalize it so they can have something for them in the future, and that's how that started.
And for the person who wants to learn and is eager, what does a family office even mean?
Most people think it's an off family that has an office, but that's not it. It's a way to keep what a family is built on different. It's not just the financial aspect of it, right? It's governance. It's to avoid in family fighting. It's to avoid all sorts of issues that can come out with wealth that somebody in the family has created. So it's really to formalize it. And for us, it's the like I said, it's educating the kids, teaching them what we have, making sure there's charitable event part aspect of it, making sure there's some sort of governance between them, so as life goes on, that there's not an issue with them with regards to money and what they want to do, because there's no assurances that anybody's going to continue with what we're doing. So it's creating a way for them to continue with what we opened up. My parents gave me the opportunity to come to the U.S. Right, that story of a 14-year-old kid immigrating here. That was the best thing in the world that could have happened to me. Going to law school was one of the best things I could have done as a business person. And I want to leave my kids certain things that they could do. And some of it is learn the value of what we've done, continue with the succession of what we've done one way or another, continue continue to be as a family, as a unity out there, because as you're going to have your own kids and grow, and just to make sure that they're all set up in a way to where they can be financially independent, but the same way they're not going to take the money and piss it away, in a way of saying spend it one way or another, or just have nothing left, because they don't have much of a family to lean on in the U.S. So they're going to be very independent, and we wanted to give them the assurance that they can stay very independent on their own. And again, girls are girls, right? You want the girls to be independent, not rely on a husband for everything and anything there is. I have three daughters to be extremely independent, to understand everything there is. I see a lot of friends of ours who over the years got divorced or got separated, and a lot of them don't understand how the credit works, or a lot of them don't have credit, or a lot of them never had credit card on their own because they were relying everything on their husband. I want my kids to be exactly the opposite of it. I want them to be very, very strong and independent.
Wow, powerful. Where you've gotten to where you are now, there's that famous saying, more money, more problems. What's the biggest challenge with having money, with being the person that people rely on, with being the person who has a vision, who has a dream, who goes what after he wants to be in that 1% category? What's the hardest thing that comes along with that burden, or burden to some people would say?
It's a very good question, because the bigger you are, the bigger the problems are, right? And if you don't have big problems, you're not thinking big. There's a saying that goes, the more you think, the more problems you have, the more you're going to grow. Because if you have little problems, you have little deals. I mean, it's everything. As the business grows, it's more people to manage. It's more people to feed. It's more responsibility as a owner of a business to make sure that the business stays afloat, because a lot of people are relying on you. So you cannot just decide, oh, today I'm not going to do it, tomorrow I'll do it. Today I'm slowing down. You got to have consistency in it, right? Because a lot of people are relying on what you do. We're feeding quite a bit of employees out there, in the sense of they're relying on us paycheck and for job security. I mean, it's the challenges that it's every real estate deal creates a different challenge out there. So I mean, it's if you have one deal, you have one challenge. If you have 10 deals, you can have 10 different challenges. And within the 10 challenges, it's appeared to be hundreds of challenges out there. So as you grow the real estate portfolio, so comes the number of tenants that you grow with, the number of lenders that you work with, the number of employees that you have, because engineers, property managers, all that, it just become it's not that it's an issue, but it's just propel itself to be on a larger scale. So you got to manage a much larger scale of scope of work to make sure that it stays there. And I mean, we're very hands-on. We try to be very interactive. This is an operating company, not a family office. The operating company, we're extremely active in it. We're extremely hands-on on it, and we try to control as much of it as we can so the process stays in tune with regards to the way we see it and the vision of it. But it's like anything else, right? I mean, it's the economy, it's a rising interest rate, it's rising cost of operating out there. It's everything is a challenge. I always tell people, it's if you're small and big, the only difference is you have extra zeros as far as the problems, right? If you owe the bank with 3 zeros, we may owe the bank with 5 zeros or 6 zeros or 7 zeros. It's just bigger numbers and bigger issues. If somebody has a small issue because they have one house and one tenant, they have an issue. Well, we have the same thing, but we have hundreds of tenants. So instead of one tenant, we may have issue with 5 or 10 tenants. It just propels it to a larger issue. It's part of any business. I don't think there's a single business out there to where you could say, I'm in the business because it doesn't have any issues. That doesn't exist. Every business has issues. But we've learned over the years how to handle it, and we control it, and it's part of norm of any business.
So, and then quickly, when we look on, you said like we have the operating company, then the family office. With the family office, in terms of multiplication of wealth, what do you guys look at as asset classes to continue to grow that wealth? Or is it more about protecting that wealth? Or is it investing it back into the operating company? What does that look like?
So that's a really good question. So the operating company, the main company is the real estate company, which is that's been the core of what we're doing. The family office is looking for other opportunities out there because we have to divest and not have everything in real estate. But in the last 2 to 3 years, and we just set up formalized it more in the last 3 years, right? We've had it for a little bit, but it's got more formalized in the last 3 years, where we brought an outside CEO to run the family office. It's set up as its own entity. It's running separate from the operating company. It's independent from the operating company, and we're looking for deals out there. The real estate market has done extremely well for us. The return has been very high for us, and the family office is making investment for the most part into real estate deals out there because it's the one that we can give the best opinion and we can help the most, right? So if we invest into, let's assume, a technology company or something that we don't know anything about, we may like it, we may love it, but can we add value to it? Which is some of the question that comes about how can we add more value to it, right? So, for example, it may be a technology company. Let's call it EV chargers, right? So we would like to get involved with that because it comes right back to real estate because we can help. Hey, we have enough properties. Bring your electric chargers and put them on our properties, and then we have friends that have real estate. We have other people that have this, and we can help the company grow in an indirect way. So it's not real estate, but it comes back to real estate. So we like to look at investments to where we can help in an indirect way somehow. So it could be software for the real estate industry. It could be electric charges for the real estate industry. It could be anything else that maybe a lending platform. So those are the type of deals that we like because for the most part, if it's a small deal, we will be passive. But if it's a larger deal that we look at, we want to see if we can add value in an indirect way by introducing, helping them grow, helping them connect in some way to where typically they may not be able to do it on their own. So that's what we look at.
Powerful. And let me quickly ask you, what's your dream now? You've accomplished all these things and the vision keeps going. I'm sure you still have an imagination that every single day you're up with a fire and relentlessness to go after what you want and to continue to preserve the family legacy and build upon that. What's your dream now? What's in your imagination?
I'm a deal junkie. I don't have to work, but I love it. I mean, I love everything I do every single day, 7 days a week. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of excitement, chasing the deals out there, and I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and do more of it. I mean, sometimes when we have a strategic planning meeting, either for the operating company, the family office, there's like, do we want to slow down? Do we want to move at the same pace, or do we want to grow? And I'm the one that's like, let's just keep growing. Let's do more. It's the fun part of it. You know, I love this, and I want to keep doing real estate. We're shifting more into the hospitality now, which is an interesting part of it. We are working on a large hotel project in Atlanta, and we're also working on a private club, doing a very high-end private club. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully next year it'll be up and running. That the goal is by first quarter of next year to be up and running with this deal, and let's see where that goes. So we're shifting with the markets. I mean, a year from now we may be doing a different sector of real estate. I don't know. I mean, 3 years ago we had zero office. Now we have 3 million square feet of office within 3 years. Next year we may shift into a different sector of real estate. I don't know, but it's exciting. I have no idea what it's going to be, but we're chasing the opportunities out.
Very exciting. Okay, so before we leave, I have a game I like to play. I'm going to say a word, and whatever word that comes to your mind from that word, you say it, and then I'll get you to explain, okay?
Okay.
Entrepreneur.
Hustle.
Explain.
You want me to explain what hustle is? Just keep chasing whatever makes you happy. Hustle. When I say hustle, it's street smarts, right? I mean, I have a law degree, but to me, I think number one is street smart. So the hustle comes from the street smart, because they can't teach you that in school. They can't teach you that in law school. Law school can teach you certain things, how to think, how to write, certain things to do. I think it adds credibility to the table, but the hustle is what gets you the fire. I think the hustle is what gets you to negotiate. The law part of it gets you to write a better agreement once you negotiate it, but the hustle is what gets you as an entrepreneur to get to where you need to do, how to negotiate, or how to convince somebody that you're the right buyer, right? I mean, for sometimes when we buy real estate, they do what's called a buyer interview. They actually interview you, which is interesting because they want to get the assurance in that crazy market that we're in that you're actually going to close on the deal. And it's convincing people like, yes, we're the right group, we're the right people, because there's several other people like us that can write the check and do the deal. Having the fire, having the conviction to convince somebody to do it, and that takes a hustle. You got to be able to hustle. You got to be able to have the fire, the gut instinct, and that's to be an entrepreneur. You got to have the gut instinct. It's nothing you can learn. It's something that it's you're not born with it. You got to learn it. And I know they don't teach it in school. They should have a hustle 101 in school.
Resilience.
Yeah. Being tough, I guess. Tough. Having thick skin, not getting offended, not getting upset, being called, and calculated and cool and collective, just to last out there.
Marriage.
That's a good one. Marriage. Etty. You want one word? Etty, my wife. Look, it's the castle behind you. It's the having the right partner in life who's going to lift you, who's going to support you, no matter how crazy and mad you are with your decisions and what you want to do. It's someone's going to compliment you, or it's going to help drive you forward, not hold you back. It's behind every great man stands a woman, right? But beside you, there needs to be someone, not just behind you. You want someone who's going to stand beside you, someone's going to, compliment what you do or help you do it. In our case, we work together, so we have to lift each other. But in case you don't work together, is having someone's going to look at you and put you on a pedestal the same way that you're going to put on the pedestal. It's very, very important that you lift each other. It's and a happy wife, happy life. It's the same way. A happy husband, same way. It's creating. When you come to work because you have a good life, you have good marriage, you get good home, you're thinking about less about issues at home. It could give you a better drive to succeed in life.
Legacy.
Something that the family office is working on, right? It's you build. It's the name. It's the charity. It's carrying a good family name. It's what we're teaching a good is be good. Do good, be good. It's things that we're teaching our kids since they were young. It's part of the charity that they're doing. Keep continuing out. It's not necessarily having your name on a building. You don't have to have your name on a building to say, okay, we wrote a big check. Continue to do the good things, to keep doing the good deeds. So teach other people how to do the good deeds. Sometimes donating your time is better than donating money, right? Because it's something that can help people in a whole different way versus somebody writing a check. It means more that you're actually contributing your time. That could be part of your legacy too.
Fatherhood.
It's a full-time job. It's trying to raise kids. I'll give you a word for fatherhood. What's one word for fatherhood? Me, I guess, Chaz. being a good dad, but at the same time, it's a loaded question, right? Because you work hard to give your kids what you wish you didn't have, but at the same time, do they really need it and do they really want it, or they want you to be around the whole time? That's the biggest balancing act that you got to do. They don't know any better, right? If you tell a kid that's all we have, they're happy with that. If you give them more, do they want more because of it? It's an issue. It's balancing what they need and what they want. It's really, really tough job to do it because there's one side you want to give them everything. On the other side is you want to make sure that they stay grounded. You want to make sure that they're stay reasonable. You want to make sure that they stay humble and trying to balance all that out. Not easy. And especially being a dad to girls, it's very, very hard because when they look at you and say, "Daddy, please," it's really hard sometimes to say no. I don't have boys, so I don't know how it works with boys, but with girls, it's very tough as a dad.
Powerful. And just quickly, lastly, what does Chaz mean, your name?
One cool dude. There's a funny story about that if you want to hear it real quick.
Yeah.
So my Hebrew name is Yoram, Yoram, and when I came to the U.S., people couldn't announce it. People say, "Yo, what? Yeah," and I'm like, "It's Yoram." Nobody can pronounce it. And I said, I got to come up with an English name. So I came here right in December of '79, and it was a football game. And I sat down and I kept writing names, and I picked up the name Larry. And I was going, "Oh, that's kind of cool name, Larry Lazarian." I liked it. So I went to school the following week. School started, and people asked me, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Larry." And people go, "Okay." And then I don't know, a while later, I met somebody, and they go, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Larry." They go, "You don't look like a Larry." And I told him the whole story. It's not really my name. I just picked up the name. It's not my legal name. And I don't remember who this person is, but I remember sitting somewhere with them on the curb of a street. We were somewhere. We were just sitting on the curb of the street talking. And it was a young girl. And she told me, "You need a cool name. Larry's not a cool name. You don't look like a Larry." And we just start throwing names around, And she goes, "Chaz." And I'm like, "What's Chaz?" She goes, "That's a cool name." I'm like, "How do you spell it?" She goes, Chaz. I said, I kind of like it. And for the life of me, I don't remember who it was, what it was, but I do remember the moment of sitting down on a curve of the street. Don't ask me why we're sitting on a curve of the street. I have no idea, but I remember the moment. And I'm like, "Okay, Chaz." And then everybody that I met from that point on, I'm like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "My name is Chaz." So till today, my mom calls me by my Hebrew name, which is Yoram. The friends that met me early on still call me Larry from time to time. And everybody from there on calls me Chaz. So I have like three names per se. And depending, if somebody calls me by my real name, that means I'm in trouble unless it's my mom. Because, and then over the years, I've actually adopted Chaz to be my legal name. So it's been my legal name for a long time. And then I kept my Hebrew name as my middle name. So from time to time, some people still say me, "Hey, Larry, what's up?" Which is pretty funny.
Pretty funny.
So
And
Chaz is the name. It's cool. And I love it. It's so different. It kind of fits my character and fits who I am.
yeah. And your Hebrew name, Yoram, what does that mean?
It actually means brilliance, like smart.
There you go.
Maybe it fits me. Maybe it fits me. I don't know.
I think this podcast has been a whole revelation of that brilliance and that intelligence. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been an amazing podcast to just really learn about you, the vision that you've had, and the brilliance that you've been able to apply in your life and in the family's life. And I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to be doing more of things like this, around. Just before we go, what's the last message you would love to leave for your grandchildren one day? If when they watch this podcast, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what message would you like to leave them?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to say that. Look, I hope them to realize the opportunity. It's like when you hear about immigrant stories, not just necessarily mine, people that came here at the turn of last century, right? You hear all these great stories, people that came at the turn of centuries, got off the boat, people that survived World War II and came to the U.S., and all these immigrant stories that you hear. We took a lot of sacrifices. It wasn't just me. My parents suffered just as much as me, maybe even more. I couldn't even fathom to have my 14-year-old girl gone for as long as I was gone. I couldn't live, my 18-year-old goes to college for a week, and honestly, for a week, I go crazy. So I can just imagine having a 14-year-old. So my parents sacrificed as much as I did, and maybe even more. The fact that at the age, they were in the late 40s when they moved to the US. I was about 16 when they moved to here. My parents were in the 40s. For them to move at age 40 to a country to where they didn't speak the language, didn't speak everything else, it's a huge sacrifice. I can just imagine if my kids asked me today to move somewhere to a different country. You're sacrificing so much to give to your kids. But that's what parents do, right? That's what I guess that's what I learned how to do. My parents sacrificed for me. I sacrificed for my kids, and hopefully my kids won't have to sacrifice as much, but still sacrifice for their kids. I hope they appreciate what we gave up. I gave up my childhood. I felt I gave up my friends, my home. I gave up everything that I had, everything that I knew, to come to a country to start from scratch. And it's it leaves a lot of scars in you, right? There's still a lot of issues with it. I still have the dilemma. I still have, questioning sometimes, why did I make the right move? Did I make the wrong move? It's not about the financial success, because sometimes you sit there and you ponder and you wonder, well, what would have happened if I stayed back home? And I would love for them to see it and appreciate what we've done and how hard we worked and how much we sacrificed as a lifetime, not just financially, but as an individual, years of our life. And we're grateful for what we have now. It's best thing in the world, an amazing country. We're grateful for every opportunity we had here. The U.S. has been a blessing for us. I hope people will appreciate how wonderful of a country it is and how great it is as a country, and compared to other places in the world. I mean, it's the land of opportunity, and it gave us a great opportunity. And hopefully they'll take it and keep building on to it, keep doing great things. That's what I hope.
Powerful. Well, I'm sure they'll be watching this interview very proud. I want to thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.
It was great talking, and really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hey, what's wrong? Bro, I'm stressed out. I'm running my business. I've got to serve my customers, but I need more customers coming in. I can't keep relying on word of mouth. Why don't you just use ETS Rabasha Media? Who? Well, with AI now, what they do is they go in, get your perfect clients, bring them in front of you. So all I got to do is run my business, and he brings me opportunities. Think about it. You speak to 3,000 of your ideal customers, convert 1% of that 3,000. That's 30 people. 30 people in a room with you. Can you convert that? Of course I'll close them. I'm good at what I do. I just don't have time to be going and looking for my perfect client. Focus on what you love doing and let them bring you customers. When you win, they win, commission, ching. Sujira Rabasha, huh? Yeah, Sujira Rabasha. Go and Google them, man. Come on, take it to the bank.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're gonna love that one.